Hey there, my name is LexC and thank you so much for tuning in to my channel for a book review today. If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are returning, welcome back, welcome back. It's been a little minute since I've done a book review, right? It's been a little minute. So I'm back. I have finally finished my next book since I think We Need to Talk was the last one that I did, right? Well, today I am doing a book review on Pressure, the autobiography of a real Miami OG by OG Gigavelli, Keithan Hunter. But I met OG Gigavelli working with the In and Out podcast. He was one of the guests that we had on the show, and he was telling us about a couple of books that he has actually. So this is the first one. It's called Pressure. The second one is called Federal Pressure. And I think he might have a third one. I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that he is also working on doing like a screenplay adaptation of the books. So whether that's a movie, whether that's like a TV series, like a limited series, something like that, very exciting. So I want to get into the book review for Pressure by OG Gigavelli. If you are interested in that, then continue to watch and stay tuned. Let's hop right into it. All right, so first and foremost, the title, Pressure, Autobiography of a Real Miami OG Gigavelli. And this is copyrighted 2021, September 8, 2021. There are 216 pages to read. Oh, hey, my bookmark is there. Side note, if you have not gotten my bookmark yet, highly recommend. It's great. Throw it in the book. Keep track of where you are in your book. It's cute. Let me know if you want one. But yeah, so this is 216 pages. There are 9 chapters. And the chapter names, it's all some kind of pressure. So there's fatherless pressure, peer pressure, juvenile pressure, still juvenile pressure, prison pressure, major pressure, county jail pressure, dope game pressure. And the purpose of this book is really just like, it's an autobiography. It's a reflection of some of the actions that OG Gigavelli took, some of the experiences he had that led to like the multiple times that he became incarcerated, and eventually what led to his lengthy sentence. I don't exactly remember how much time he got, but I want to say it was like 15 years or something like that. The last bit he did, like the long stretch that he did. And so, yeah, this book is just detailing those experiences and some of the events that led up to that. And it's a really very interesting read. I will say that the most impactful parts to me, like the parts that stood out to me the most, it's in chapter 8, which is, at the end of the book. It's the county jail pressure. Those are where I have like most of my favorite parts, my favorite moments within the book. So yeah, I want to go through a few of my favorite moments. The first one actually is in chapter 1. And what is chapter 1? Chapter 1 is called Fatherless Pressure. Going to page 4. This is where his aunt is telling him like he's basically going to end up just like his dad. He got the nickname of Lil Pig. His dad's nickname was Pig. And I think he went over his aunt's house. She was like the candy lady making her money or whatever. And he would people would come to the house and pay the aunt in like coins and change. And sometimes they would drop the coins. He did like a little hustle of going under the staircase and collecting those coins, and that's how he was getting his money as a little kid. But something that stuck out to me is what the aunt said. So she was the candy lady to everybody. Even family had to pay to eat at her house. I didn't have a problem with that because I always had money. She knew all about me going under the house for those dropped coins. When she knew I was going down there, she would be waiting on her cut. She was one of the first people to tell me things about my daddy Pig, none of which was good. She would say things like, "You're not going to be nothing but a dope head just like Pig." She always chastised me, claiming that all I wanted to do was run the streets. Whenever I would be gone for too long, she would have something to say. She didn't want me to hang out at the corner store. Thinking back now from this prison cell, I hate to say it, but she was right in some ways. I did come to prison and I was on drugs. The one place my daddy's reputation didn't follow me to was school. I messed that up on my own. So this part sticks out to me because, there's a lot of stories that I hear of people who kind of come from like tough backgrounds. Either like eventually OG Gigavelli has like come to his own success, right? But with a lot of stories that I hear like this, either somebody had like an amazing mentor, somebody who was pouring into them and nurturing them and like encouraging them to go the right way, or they had people around them looking at the actions, and instead of taking the initiative to like keep them on a more positive path, they would say stuff like this, like, oh, you're not going to amount to nothing. You're going to be just like your daddy. You're going to end up just like your mama, blase, blase, right? And so it stuck out to me because I think it really is sad. Like, I don't know people's situations, but the better solution in situations like this is if the adults in the situation could somehow cultivate an environment that would allow kids to be better than they were. But I know it's tough. Like there's a lot of layers that go into situations like this because a lot of survival mindset and, maybe parents and like adults just, they don't have the time either because they worried about how they're going to make money, how they're going to feed people, how they're going to pay the bills, So maybe they didn't have the time, maybe they didn't have the money and the resources to give the kids like a better outlet, and all they could do was talk to them. Granted, they probably could have chose more positive words, but stuff like this, it does happen. So that stuck out to me because that's one of the like more unfortunate parts about situations like this is just the negative talk that is heard. And just imagine like if that negative talk wasn't so prevalent, would the kid have a better start or be exposed to a better thinking, like have better imagination past what they're seeing all around them in their environment? It doesn't have to be like this always, but unfortunately everybody gets stuck in that mindset. And even in my family, I do have some people like that. I think we all have people like that in some capacity in our lives, right? So that was the first one. The next one is in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is still juvenile pressure. This is page 52. It was called Smash and Grab. All you needed was a spark plug. Really just little pieces of it would shatter a car window. When I started seeing the type of bread young niggas were hitting for by smashing and grabbing, I was down for the lick. The game went like this. We would ride 4 deep in a car because the more grabbers, the more niggas could jump out looking for tourists. We called them the funk. It was a known fact that when people went on vacation, they went with a lot of cash. So that's what made them our targets. When we saw a parked car that obviously belonged to a tourist, visible maps were a giveaway. We would jump out, run up to the car, and look in for bags like pocketbooks. That's when we would throw the piece of spark plug and smash the window and grab the bag. It would only take a minute when done right. This part is so interesting to me because I've heard stories about, like, I live in Atlanta and I've heard stories about people getting their car windows smashed in with these little spark plugs. I don't know how it works, but OG Gigavelli explained it in this part of the book. And it's just another example of like the kind of hustles that he was doing. So if I remember correctly, I finished this book like 3 weeks ago, y'all. While I was on retreat, I was working at a retreat for Kim Fields, the Refresh retreat. I posted about it on my TikTok and my Instagram. Don't know if y'all follow me, if y'all saw that, but yeah, I was on the river. I was on the lake finishing this book. So forgive me if some things are fuzzy, but I believe his main hustles were like selling weed. I think cocaine might have been something he sold, and then robbing people. So whether that was tourists who were coming straight from the airport, robbing people, like robbing the cars, or they would do like a grab, like a snatch and grab, like grabbing off the street. Like that was wild to me. There's a story where they said there were a bunch of tourists coming off of a tour bus, and I think one of his friends was like kind of desperate to hit a lick because he really needed the money, and he knew he probably should not have hit this lick because it's just bad vibes around it, and when you get those vibes, you should listen to yourself and not do it. But he ended up doing it, and I think he got caught up with that and sent to juvenile prison. But in broad daylight, hopped out the car, snatched the lady's purse on the street in front of the tour bus. And yeah, like it's crazy to hear stuff like this because I just I don't come from an environment where things like that is like what happens often, like it's not prevalent where I've grown up and where I am. At least I don't see it. I'm not in those kinds of areas. By the grace of God, I'm a knock on wood. By the grace of God, I have not had to experience it. So it's just really interesting to hear how they went about, like, how do you know who the people are? Like, why do they look like a target? He said you could tell it was a tourist car because they have maps everywhere. That's a sign that they don't know where they are and they have to like try to figure out and navigate. So it's just really interesting to me to hear about how they did the smash and grab. And it makes me a little more weary riding around these ATL streets. But they were in Miami though. Next part that stuck out to me, speaking of getting a bad feeling, like his friend was desperate to get a couple licks, right? And he got hemmed up with a robbery because his friend was like not making smart choices, basically. A lot of these things maybe were not the smartest choice, probably in retrospect, right? But that's just what people know. That's how they survive. So, it's not, is it wrong? Yeah, maybe. But when you got survival on the line, it's good to have a little bit of sympathy, a little bit of empathy for like what people are going through and why they do the things they do. So we're going to go into chapter 8 now. This is the county jail pressure, going to page 20. I wasn't even buying nothing for myself. I was on a real grind, white tee, Dickie set out the flea market, wearing old shit from when I went to prison and left in the closet. I still had cross-color shit I was calling myself bringing back in style. I didn't care about what nobody else thought about me. I always felt confident with myself. Ever since I was a little boy, I always thought big. It was just something in me that always wanted to stand out. I could never be a basic nigga. I'm a trendsetter, a leader. That's why I was having conflicting feelings and thoughts right now, thinking to myself, what am I doing here? And what was my real plan? If I could be really honest with myself, I wasn't being a leader. My plan was nothing, and deep down, I knew it. How could you be a leader when you following your homie? What kind of plan did I have? That depended on somebody else moving with you. What kind of plan had I that depended on somebody else moving with you? I've been following from day one when I listened to Bert telling me I didn't have to check into my PO, following Bones' lead on going on the road, creating a plan for myself that depended on another nigga to drive me up the road. All these moves I was making was only digging a hole for me. And when you out there thugging and hustling in them streets, you can feel when the hole is getting deeper. You don't know what kind of hole it is, your grave or a jail cell. That's why I smoke so much weed and drink so much, trying not to think about that hole. I can only speak for myself though. But if you've ever been locked up before, when you finally in your cell and lying back on your bunk, you think back on all them early signs you ignored. That feeling you get before you sell to an undercover or before you run in on that robbery, and yet you went with it anyway because you needed the money or because of the homies that was with you. I've been having them same feelings lately. That's why I started having them dreams. But what can I do about it? Those streets chose me. I didn't ask for this life. All I knew was the hustle. I've been doing it all my life. The 8-ball and MJG came to mind. What can I do to get out the game? I really like this part because it's a self-reflective moment. And this is more so at the end of the book. It's in chapter 8, but it's a self-reflective moment where OG Gigavelli is like, man, there's been a series of events and a series of decisions that I made to follow other people because that's all they knew and that's what they passed on to me. And again, I got to ask that question, is it wrong? Yeah. The stuff they were doing, yes, hurting other people, it's wrong. But also, can I understand it? Absolutely. Because when that's the environment you grow up in, when that's all you know, when that's all the people around you know, you're only as good as the options that you're presented with. And so you make the best choice out of what's in front of you. If you don't have great in front of you, then you're choosing from not so great options, right? But you just make the best out of what's in front of you. But I really appreciate the self-reflection that comes about in this book because that is something I look for when I'm reading stuff like this. What was the turning point of when you started to question, why am I doing this? And how can I get out? What is there more for me? I really appreciate when someone is starting to have like a transformative moment and you can literally read like when that change began to happen. So I think that was really cool. So we're still going to be in chapter 8. I'm going to skip to page 134. This is still county jail pressure. So what we got here? I always find myself in here. Okay, let me start on 133 actually. Woulda, shoulda, coulda. What good was it to be thinking about all that now? I was back in the belly of the beast. No matter how hard I try to tell myself that this ain't my life, I'm better than this, smarter than this, I always find myself in here. God, why? What is it you trying to tell me? Or better yet, what is it you trying to teach me? Those were the kind of thoughts that were going through my mind as they moved me up on the housing floors. Now, at this point, I don't quite remember what was going on. Did he get in a fight with somebody? He might have got caught up again. I'm trying to think, was this right after he like shot a dude for being disrespectful? He was moving a dude and his girlfriend, and the dude was being super disrespectful, even though OG Gigavelli was helping them move and all of that. So was that what happened here? Or did he just get in a fight? I don't remember. But again, to piggyback off of what I was talking about on the previous part that we got into, it's another moment of self-reflection. Like, how did I allow myself to get here? I thought I was better than this. I thought I was smarter than this. I thought I was going to get out. But here I am making the same mistake, doing the same crazy things. God, why? What are you trying to teach me? What are you trying to tell me and show me? I really appreciate that self-reflection. And then the last section that I have highlighted here, so on page 169, we're still in chapter 8 of county jail pressure. And I think this is like the last straw. Was I tired of being locked up? Let me find. All right. Bushwick had a 30-ball sentence on a body and robbery case. He had been down about 10 years by this time and converted Islam Sunni Muslim. I could see the change in him and the peace he had, even with such a long sentence. I would have long talks with him about the streets and the homies. He would listen, but then he would always ask me tough questions like, was I tired of being locked up? He would say shit like keeping it real with the homies is loyalty to the hood, but keeping it real with yourself is loyalty to God. He would ask, when was the last time the homies went around to check up on your mom and your kids? And when was the last time the homies sent you some money on your books? But you would put in work for the homies right now if they asked you to. Or if somebody dissed the hood or disrespect Velli, that's the set he from, you would ride on them, right? Talking to Bushwick on a daily basis started making me think about my life in a different way. Here was one of the homies whose brother had helped so many niggas on in the game, but nobody was really showing him love. There were a few. He would tell me about them. He always talked highly of Bela and Choppa off 15th Avenue and Fred, but overall, he was like after his brother got killed, niggas fell back off him and the family. I knew how he was feeling. I was going through the same thing with my brother being locked up. He helped put niggas on. I even put a nigga down with him that wasn't getting no money until bro took him in. But this same nigga wouldn't send me a dime. And, so yeah, again, with the whole taking responsibility, having a self-reflective moment, having a transformative moment, conversations with his cellie, or just a dude he was in there with named Bushwick, right? And I think this is how he started getting influenced to get into the Islam culture and the Muslim culture, religion, I mean. And yeah, it's like, we spend all this time going so hard for, I think about the song, is it O.J. Simpson, the song that Jay-Z came out with? And he was basically like, we repping a block that we don't own, repping the block that our mama still rents the house on. We don't even own the house. We don't own the block. We don't own the neighborhood. And it's like killing each other off of street names that we don't own, and we have no control and no power over this land. And then when you think about some of the people that you're doing some of these things with, you go so hard for them on the outside, but as soon as you run into a little bit of trouble, who's actually gonna be there for you? Who is actually making sure your family is good? You might have made sure everybody was good on the outside, but who's keeping it solid once you are no longer able to like function and work at the full capacity that you used to? And I think a lot of guys would find there are some rare ones in there that would continue to make sure your family is good, or put money on your books, stuff like that, come visit you in prison, make sure your kids are good. But a lot of people fall off in situations like this, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's romantic interest. When somebody goes to prison, like that obviously is like one of the ultimate tests of who is going to be down with you, who's going to be consistent. But yeah, putting yourself in these crazy situations for loyalty, like in the name of loyalty, and it's been proven that people are never going to be as loyal with you as they will be to themselves. It's really just a reminder that yes, we want to be good to people, but we also can't allow everyone to keep taking. We can't give everybody a sip, because then our cup runs dry. And unfortunately, what happens, and I've experienced this as well, we give so much to other people, but then you look around when you're thirsty and you're like, hey, can anybody spare me a sip? And nobody has anything for you. That's when you start to be like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm good first and foremost. And it's not to say that you don't still love the people. It's just you realize that you can't get anywhere until you get that focus back to, is this star player good? You know, Cat Williams would say, you got to check in with your star player. You are your star player. The team don't move forward. Life don't move forward if the star player is not right, is not fed, is not, fed into. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed reading this book. My main critique with this book would be that it was hard for me to get through and like kind of stay engaged because the chapters are so long. So with me, I like to feel like I'm getting through a book. I like consistent breaks in the book and clear breaks in the book. Structure, like format wise, as far as like how the chapters are set up, maybe I would maybe tell OG Gigavelli to like either shorten the chapters or have like a better way to break up the chapters so that I can feel like I'm making progress. That's the only thing that like kind of made it take me so long, besides a busy schedule. Me feeling like the chapters were so long that I didn't feel like I was getting through it. And I don't know, when I get to that point, it takes me longer to finish. So that would be my only critique for this book. But overall, it's a good read. It was pretty easy to read. I'm Black, so I'm used to Black people who talk like this. The text is very much in a tone of like people who are from Miami who talk like that. It's like a certain slang. You might call it like colloquial or vernacular type language. That's just how people from this part of the States talks. But I could easily understand all of that. And listening to him on the interview that we did with him on In and Out, he writes the same way he talks. So it's super easy to follow. It's like very conversational, very natural because of that. And yeah, I have to double check to see that I have the second one. I don't remember if I have Federal Pressure, which is the second part of this, because at the end of this book, he just got hit with like a 15-year sentence or something like that. So I think Federal Pressure is him talking about his time in the feds. I got to see if I have that. If I do, then I will read that in the future. But if I don't, I got to buy it and then read it. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Pressure, Autobiography of a Real Miami OG Gigavelli by Keithan Hunter, but he goes by OG Gigavelli. Really enjoyed the read. Let me know what y'all think of my review. Let me know if you will read the book for yourselves. Put it in the comment section. If you're listening on Spotify, then leave it in the review of this episode. What do you think? everything I told you, do you think you'll read this for yourself? Or at the very least, you got to check out the interview at the In and Out podcast with Eric Geralt, INNOUT, In and Out. And listen to his story. Like it's really great. He really has a great story, and he's turned it around and done something really positive with it and has been on the up and up ever since. So that's how I feel about it. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to this book review. My name is LexC. Until next time, peace.
I can't imagine something happening before you make it into